In this video, I'm going to show you how to connect a Pi project to a Jira project. In the last video, we showed how to install the Pi Connect app from the Atlassian Marketplace. So I'm going to assume that you already have this done, as you can see here under the Apps, Manage Apps page. So let's change this back to the View All Projects List page. Now I'm going to switch over to Pi. And let's create a project in Pi, then let's get it connected with a project in Jira. Click on Create Project. Let's call it Blueberry. You can create yours from scratch. I'm going to leverage an existing recipe. And I'm going to use this Agile development recipe that I already have in my library. Click on Finish. And now the first step to do is to click on the little pencil here, click on the integration tab within the project configuration page, and you can see here connect with Jira. Click on start connection. Now you're going to enter your site name. That's your Atlassian site name. Pi Matrix is mine, and you can see it explains how to do it here. So the site name is the name before .atlassian.net. Don't type out the whole Atlassian.net here, just the name before that. Click on Continue. Now we have this authorization page. Because I belong to multiple sites, I have to choose which site I want to use, but if you only have one site, you won't get this drop down. Then just click on Accept. Okay, next step right here. Choose one of the following options. So you have two options. You can create a new Jira project to connect with this Pi project, or you can connect this Pi project to an existing Jira project. So we're going to click on the first one here, but if you wanted to connect to an existing Jira project, you would click this. It would give you a list of the existing Jira projects you have in that account, and then you would select it. But here I'm going to connect to a new one. And then it's going to give me this next option, connect to Jira. Just click on that. And you can see here it says connecting to Jira, please wait. And voila, it's done. Now I need to go to my Jira, refresh the page. And then there's a couple other things we're going to do when we get back to Pi. So I'm going to just close this window here, go back to my Pi project. I'm going to switch my tab over to Jira. I'm going to refresh my browser. And sure enough, here it is, Blueberry. Now, a little bit of housekeeping I always recommend you do at the beginning. Let's go ahead and open up the Jira project. The first thing I like to do is just to clean up the sprint name. Because when you go into this, you're actually starting with the first sprint, because you're on the board page. So rather than using a sprint name like 50 sprint, what I like to do is give it a better name, which would be the project name. And then I would type sprint number 1, click update. Okay, that looks better. And then let's go into the backlog. I'm not sure why, but Jira for some reason adds this extra sprint here, which I don't need, because down here you can see here's my sprint 1 for my Blueberry project, and then here's my backlog. So that's all I need to get started is these two, so I will just delete this other item. Okay, now let's go back to the board. And the other thing to check out is here you can see by default I have these three columns: to do, in progress, and done. Now let's check out my Pi recipe that came in. Let's go to the sprint slice, and mine is a little different. I've got a test column here, and or I can just add some more columns, but really what you want to do is to map these columns to the ones in Jira. And what I need to do here is just add a new column for test. Then drag it in place. Okay, so now we have it. I'm going to leave to do as to do. That's not a problem. I just know how to map that in Pi, which is what we're going to do next. So now what we have to do is to map the columns, because you could have columns in Pi that you may not want to have mapped in Jira and vice versa. So in my example here, I want to map all of them, and this is how you do it. You hover over the box, click on the More Options button, the little kebab icon here. And then at the bottom of the list, you see it says Connect with Jira column. Click on that. And then select the column in Jira. So these are all of the Jira columns. So I'm going to select To Do. And then just close this window. You can see now it says it's connected to Jira because it has this little orange icon here. I'm going to do that with the others. Okay, so they're all mapped. Now we have this nice backlog feature. I happen to name a slice called backlog, but you could have any slice here called design or planning or whatever you like. And within here is a good place to start putting in your stories, you know, your tasks in Pi that are considered stories for your development team in Jira. And I actually pre-labeled a box called Jira Backlog, but you could label your boxes to anything you want. Now what I'm going to do is pick one of my boxes and I'm going to connect it to the backlog in Jira. So you can pick any of these, but I'm going to pick this one here and click on More Options. You can see it says Connect to Jira Backlog. That's what I want to do. And you can see now it's connected. All right. Now, before we do anything else within the project, what I want to do is to map the team members. So let's go to the People and Roles page for my project in Pi. And right now we just have Paul. I'm going to add Kate. And also Ilona. These members are also members of my Jira account. But what I need to do is to map them to their same name in Jira. And to do that, you click on the bar, expand it, and you see a new button shows up. It says Connect to Jira. And then click on the cell, find the name. So this is Paul. I'm going to look for Paul. I'm going to select it, and now Paul is connected. I'm going to close this one. I'm going to do the same for Kate. Click on Connect to Jira. Click on this search field. Look for Kate. Here we go. Click Close, and then let's do Ilona. So when you see this list of names and this pop-up here, these are the list of people that are members of your Jira project. So I'm going to look for Ilona. And if there's a name in here that's not found, then you just need to add that person in your Jira account. Okay, and that's done. Now we're ready to get started. There's a couple things we can do here. We can add a task in a backlog or add it in a sprint, but let's start by adding it here in the backlog. So I'm going to create a first task. Let's call it story 1. Let's add another one, story 2. Okay. I can even add one in my other box here. Let's call this story 3, right? So let's say you've got different epics boxes. So then, you know, I'm ready to move this over to the Jira backlog, drag it in here, and you can see we have these 3 stories. Let's check it out in Jira. So let's go to backlog. And sure enough, here they are. Now, let's say you're in Jira and you say, oh, you know, I'm going to drag this over, put it into the first sprint, confirm. Let's go to the board, and you can see it here. Now let's go into Pi. And, oh, look at that. Story number 1 is no longer in this Jira backlog box. And let's go to sprint. Sure enough, here it is. Likewise, if I'm in here, let's say I'm the Scrum Master or the Project Manager, and I say, okay, the next sprint we want to work on story number 2, drag and drop. And here it is. And then if we go into Jira, it's going to show up. There it is. The other thing you might want to do, you can start assigning people. So let's say this one here, we're going to assign it to Paul. So there's Paul. Let's go into Pi. And you can see here it is assigned to Paul. You can also do it in reverse. So here I'm going to assign this one to Kate. There's Kate. Click close. Now I'm going to go to Jira, and sure enough, it automatically assigned Kate. Another thing you can do is create a new story item in Jira, add it to the sprint board or to the backlog, and it's going to automatically sync back to Pi and show up in Pi as well. You can go in here, let's say I want to change this label. And then let's click on save. Let's close this down. So I just want to go back to Pi, and you can see that it updated it. And also if I hover over it, you can see here's the description. And you could also do it in reverse. So if I change the label here, add a description, it's going to automatically map over to Jira. All right, what about drag and drop, moving them between columns? Well, let's say on the Jira side, the team is working on it. But before that, of course, you want to drag it to in progress. Say, Paul's going to start working on it. And then Paul's going to go in here, add some subtasks, break down this story into development issue items, get them done. But while Paul is doing that, let's go back to Pi. And you can see it updated. Now let's go back to Jira. It's going to go over to test. And then it's going to go over to done. But before I do that, I just want to show you it moved. And drag it over to done. And if you go to Pi, sure enough, it's done. Likewise in Pi, if I move this over to in progress, let's go over to Jira. And sure enough, there it is, it just moved. All right, the last thing I want to show you is completing a sprint. So let's do that from within Jira, because if you try to do it in Pi, like if I go in here and I click, we have this really cool feature called Mark Sprint is Finished. Now if I click on that, it says to mark your sprint finished, complete the sprint from within Jira, and then it will automatically complete it here. And that's because Pi knows this is connected to Jira. So let's do it from within Jira. So let's say today is Friday, end of the sprint period, and I'm going to click on complete. I still have one open issue. I'm going to move it to a new sprint. So let's complete this sprint. It's bringing me over to the backlog page. And check it out. It automatically puts sprint 2 ready to go. Click on start. Click on start here. And here we are, sprint number 2. And you can see we still have story number 2 that's still in progress that we're going to work on the next sprint because that was unfinished from the previous one. And it's nothing here. Now let's go to Pi, see what happened. Okay, so here we are. We have the story 2 also in progress. And what's new? Pi automatically created this slice here called done sprints. And we took all of the tasks or stories that were completed here, and we created a new process box, and then we dumped the tasks or the stories inside this box. So you do have a very visual, easy way in Pi to see what's been completed with the done sprints, and just know that the current sprint is always the current sprint in Pi that matches the current sprint in Jira. So there you have it. Real-time integration, both directions between Pi and Jira. And we hope you enjoy this. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on the marketplace. That would help us a lot. Thanks for your time.